Hey everyone, Brennan here, nurse practitioner and certified diabetes care educator. I am registered both in the United States and Sweden, currently working in Sweden as a diabetes nurse. And I want to talk about burnout. It's something I personally have experienced, I'm very passionate about. It's something I recently have been fighting to overcome. I've had it a couple times in my life. I also have a condition that makes me susceptible to burnout. I am diagnosed with autism spectrum level 1, which used to be called Asperger's. And it's very easy for a person with that kind of condition to end up with what's called autistic burnout. I hope this video will be helpful to those of you that are watching. I will have quite a few suggestions in here based off of a little bit of a combination of my personal experience, what has worked for me, and there is a lot of stuff that I'm going to be saying that is through my lens and, as I said, anecdotal, so it may not always be applicable to you. But if like just one of the things that I mentioned in this video make an impact in you, then I feel like this video is worthwhile. So I'm 43 years old. I was diagnosed on the autism spectrum level 1, which used to be Asperger's, back when I was 37, I'm currently 43. And I have dealt with burnout a few times in my life, and I've learned a few things down this road. I recently dealt with burnout again this year, and it felt like probably one of the worst cases of burnout I've had in a long time. But I finally am feeling a lot better. And those of you that follow me know that I have mentioned on my YouTube channel that I have not been feeling good. So I have not been putting out a lot of content because I have been just trying to get by day. But I feel a whole lot better. I've been going to the gym 3-4 times a week now. I am feeling stronger, probably strongest I've felt in years. I am cooking a lot more meals at home. I'm finally getting things together in my life a bit more organized. And a lot of stuff that I've kind of put on the back burner, I am actually addressing now. And it feels good. And so hopefully I can kind of share some coping strategies that I've learned along the way that have helped me. This is something that many people deal with that work in the healthcare industry because we are dealing with very stressful situations. We're dealing with other human beings when they're at their worst and most vulnerable. We deal with a lot of death and dying. And if you've ever had to care for a loved one who has been very sick, maybe even in the process of passing away, you know that this takes a toll on your health. And that's just one person that you're taking care of. Imagine if this is your full-time job every single day, day in, day out. And then you also have pressure coming from above of meeting certain metrics and trying to follow all the guidelines and not wanting to get in trouble for anything. And you're also having to deal with your coworkers and everybody's got different working styles. There is a lot of pressure. But for me, I got to a point where I moved to Sweden 4 years ago, so it was during the COVID pandemic. Now I had to learn a new language, get my nursing license here, and then I got my nurse practitioner, which they call a specialist nurse here, and learning a new culture, new customs, new way of working, new guidelines, new rules, just so many things that I had to adapt to. And I had never heard of a thing called immigration stress, and then I learned in the last year about it. And people that have been following me on this journey for the last 4 years, there were quite a few people that made a lot of comments because they only see what I put out here on the videos. And so they noticed a trend that I tended to be a bit more bitter. Some of my content was starting to be kind of depressing and I was dealing with a whole lot of stuff. But what you see on the video is only one little bit. And there's a lot of whole other things going on behind the scenes. So a year ago, my father passed away. That my mother's been having health issues. I've been having health issues. I've been dealing with some financial problems. It was a lot of pressure on me. I ended up moving to 3 different cities. And then culture shock. I kind of had, I thought I had done all my research. And it's one thing to read about moving to another place. And it's another thing to actually do it and live there. The experience that you get from reading is very different from the experience of actually being there. And I ended up with a lot of culture shock that didn't really kick in until about a year ago. After being here for 4 years, I started to wake up and realize, people are people. It doesn't matter what country you live in. There are nice people everywhere, and there's people that are not nice everywhere. And so what I found, generally speaking, is a lot of the same stressors you have in the United States you have over here. There are some things that are different, but generally speaking, we are human beings, and it doesn't matter what country we live in, you are still dealing with the human nature. And so that led to a lot of my stress, and then compounding that with, every day having to work in a foreign language, despite the fact that I passed a high school level Swedish exam to be able to get my nursing license, and I speak more Swedish now every day than I do English. I speak occasional English to my family back home, or if I get a patient who can only speak English, but I speak more Swedish now than I do English. But that being said, it requires extra processing for my brain, and so I'm extremely tired. And then the way Swedish people work together is very different than the way you work in America. In America, you work a lot more independently, and that works good for me as a person with autism. But when you're a person with autism and you have to work in a team setting, it's more challenging, I've found, navigating that experience, and it leads to me being just completely worn out by the end of the day. And so I got to a point where about a year ago, I would be so tired that I would leave work, and I was okay at work. Like everybody, patients would ask for me by name. They wanted only me to take care of them. I felt like I was doing a good job at work, but then I had nothing left for me. And it's like some people say, well, you're putting too much in your job. But the thing is, if you don't do that, then the patients don't get good care. And I'm thinking, if I were the patient, and I have been the patient on the other side, what kind of care would I want? And so what ends up happening is then I had nothing left for me. So I did really good at work, but it led to me feeling like a prisoner. And then another thing is in Sweden, they work usually 5 days a week, 8 to 5 typically. There are some other shifts that some nurses in other departments work, but it's typical to work 8-hour shifts 5 days a week. And when I originally studied to be a nurse, I studied to work 3 days a week, 12-hour shifts. And I've done the math, and I actually worked less in the States than, per calendar year, than here in Sweden, even when you take away for vacations. Because of the 40-hour work week versus the 36-hour work week in the States. And in the States, you make more money, so if you get really tired, you can always drop down to 32 hours or 24 and still be making a good salary. And that's not the case here. So I was, because of my immigration situation of not being a citizen or permanent resident, I had to work full-time to make a certain amount of money to be able to stay here. So it got to a point where I was just in survival mode all the time. And so I would leave work, and then I'd get in my car, and I didn't even have the energy to drive. I'd just sit in the car 15, 30 minutes, just trying to get the energy to turn the car on and drive. Then get home, then pull in the parking garage and just sit there and be like, I cannot move from my seat. I'm stuck in the car for another 15 minutes. Then get out, then go into my apartment, take off all my clothes, go and sit on the couch and just don't even move for 2 hours and maybe fall asleep. Don't have any energy to cook, so you end up just buying, like something that's ready-made, a frozen pie or spaghetti that's already made, because you don't have the energy. You don't even have the energy to get a shower or brush your teeth. You do it anyway, but it's just like really, really difficult. And I felt like I had lead strapped to my body everywhere. I barely could move. And this went on for months, despite being in a place that talks a lot about work-life balance. Even in Sweden, you have to take control of your own life. If you are dealing with burnout, your employer typically is not going to try to prevent that. It is up to you to stand up for yourself and advocate for yourself and say, I have too much work or whatever. I finally managed to get help with a mental health professional. I have not had good success with cognitive behavioral therapy. I don't know if you've tried it or not, but I've been through several therapists that do CBT or cognitive behavioral therapy, and I have made zero progress. But something I have had better success with is psychotherapy. Now, cognitive behavioral therapy is good for a lot of people. I think the issue is I have autism, so the cognitive behavioral therapy, a lot of the people that are doing it, they couldn't quite figure out how to work it in with my autism problem. When they gave me the option, they said you can do cognitive behavioral therapy or you can do psychotherapy. I said, let's try the psychotherapy, because I had done it many years ago and I got help from, a few of the sessions. And so that's what we did. And I can honestly say it's made a huge difference to have someone to talk to, because I felt like when I talked to family or friends or people I work with, It wasn't helpful. It actually made things worse. They're looking, they want what's best for you, but they're looking at the situation through filters. And so you kind of need that third party that doesn't really know you, that can work with you and help you navigate that whole experience. So what are some things that I have learned that have made a huge difference, that I can start going to the gym again? I'm cooking meals and, actually starting to go out with friends. I was so tired, I didn't even want to go out with my friends. Things I enjoyed, I didn't enjoy anymore. If you feel like you are struggling with signs and symptoms of burnout, then I would highly urge you to seek out a mental health professional in your area so that you can have a more individualized plan of care provided for you so that you can get through this very difficult time. Number one thing you need to learn when you're dealing with burnout, you are tired and you have your energy being exhausted through so many different things. And so you need to figure out a way to minimize your life. And there's a lot of ways that you can minimize things in your life. So one is financially. So if you have any unnecessary financial burdens, you need to try to get rid of those. If you feel like you're having to work a whole lot to pay bills, you need to figure out a way. Is there any unnecessary stuff? Do you have some subscriptions you can do away with, some apps that you're paying for? Whatever the case, try to get a grip on your financial situation. Another thing to minimize is distractions. So, for example, in the world that we live in now, we've got the wonderful smartphone, and there's all these apps and notifications. You got emails and text messages and phone calls and social media and all this kind of stuff. And a lot of people in the workplace, they will be working, and if they get like 15 seconds of downtime, they're scrolling on their phone. They're on YouTube, looking at social media, whatever. It takes a lot of your energy to go back to the tasks that you were doing before at work. And so every time you do that, you're draining your battery even faster. Your emotional, mental, physical batteries are going down quicker. So put the phone away. Maybe put it on airplane mode and try to turn off the notifications on your phone. If you put on airplane mode and you're worried about, your wife or kids or whatever trying to get a hold of you, there is a way that they can call you despite it being on, some sort of do not disturb mode. So try to eliminate as much time as possible on social media, looking at YouTube and all that kind of thing. You need to save all your energy that you can. Another thing I learned was in reading about the former CEO of Apple. He talked about noise. So he said, focus on 3 to 5 of the top priority things that you need to do. So that's what I started doing, is every night before I would go to bed, I would get a Post-it note, put it on my desk, and I would write, okay, what are the top 3 things I need to do tomorrow? So there may be a lot of things I need to do, like maybe I need to get the car inspected, I need to do laundry, and I need to do dishes, I need to clean the apartment, and I need to whatever. But I'm like, okay, and I didn't do the type 5. I just did the top 3 things I have to get done tomorrow. Like, what are the things that cannot wait, that I cannot put off like one more day? And I would do that. And sometimes, I would get one of those things done, but that's still progress. Something about visualizing it and having it written down really makes a difference. And then everything else is just noise. Also, in the workplace, this is something that I'm still working on, is trying to streamline things at work and make things a little bit more efficient and effective. So anything that is extra stuff that you can cut away, trim off the fat to make your day more easy, then that is something to think about. I currently am trying to look at my workflows every day. I'm keeping track of what I'm doing, trying to see what is there that I can do so that I can stay on task. And one thing that I noticed was in our workplace, there is a lot of jumping back and forth from one thing to another, to another, to another. And so you have to stand up for yourself, and you have to tell your colleagues, I'm sorry. I know you would like to visit with me, or, I know you want me to take care of this, but I'm doing this now. Part of the struggle for me is I'm a people pleaser. I want everybody to be happy. I want everything to go well, but it comes at a cost to me. And I'm always afraid that I'm going to make people mad. And so it's like, I had to tell myself, I am here to work. I'm here to get food on the table and have a place to live. I'm not here to make friends, and I'm not here to find family. But If you do, then that's a bonus, right? And it sounds kind of cruel and evil, but at the same time, you have to take care of yourself. Nobody else is going to do it, and you have to be an advocate for your own health. Now we're at the next point, which is learning to say no. Come up with a script in your mind, a nice way of saying no. If you're worried about making people upset, then script it out. Practice over the weekend. How am I going to say no at work? And it's not just at work, it's also after work. You may have to say no to going to a party. You may have to say no to spending time with friends because you need to rest. You may have to figure out how to whittle down your friends. I am not really an outgoing person. I come off as very gregarious, and I feel like that's been a coping skill that I have learned being autistic. I have learned being a nurse and also doing volunteer work through my religious organization when I was younger. You learn a lot of skills of how to act and how to play in the sandbox. But as I said, that comes at a cost to me. And so what I started finding out is I have all these people that are friends, and then when you're not responding to them, then all of a sudden they're angry, and then that creates unnecessary stress. So you may have to prune out these relationships or friends and figure out who are the top people that really make my life better. Who are the people that when I'm around them, I feel energized? And some of these other people, if they really are your true friends, they'll be there for you when you're feeling better. You have to prioritize sleep and rest. That's another big deal. Try and turn off your telephone. Don't watch any TV. Maybe go for a walk or read a book before you lay down. Try not to drink any caffeine before you go to bed. And in your room, try to make sure that it is conducive to sleeping. For me, I have to have a cold room. And so I'll make sure and open the window before I go to bed so that everything's nice and cold. And the bed is made before I go to bed so that it feels nice and clean. And that really helps me to relax. Let's talk about exercise. Now, exercise is extremely important. And one of the things that really ticks me off is people that have never had burnout or never had health issues tend to be very critical and judgmental and bossy. And they will tell you things like, well, you just need to eat better, and you need to go for a walk, and you need to lose weight, and you need to go to the gym. It's like, duh, like I know that. I don't need anyone to tell me that. It's just, I am so tired. It's like this feedback loop. You know that not eating healthy and not exercising is making your problem worse, but you can't even get started. And for myself, I am a perfectionist. I am one of those all or none type people. And so I'm thinking if I'm going to go to the gym, then I'm going to get a six pack and I am going to get buff and I'm going to look great and feel great. And then I'm going to go 3 days a week and I'm going to do a whole hour, and then I'm going to run every other day. And you end up getting really discouraged. And it feels a little bit embarrassing sometimes to go to the gym and just work out for 20 minutes. But that's what you have to do. You have to ration your energy. And so there's another thing I want to talk about that kind of overlaps this here, and that is kind of a 5-minute rule that I do. So if you just can't do anything, it could be doing the laundry or cleaning the kitchen or organizing your desk or preparing for tomorrow or going for a walk. Tell yourself, I will do just 5 minutes. 5 minutes is really not a whole lot. And you may be surprised. Sometimes it's just hard just trying to get going. And once you do those 5 minutes, you may end up doing more. You may only do 5 minutes, but 5 minutes is better than nothing. It takes small steps. For me, in the beginning, like I said, I had no motivation. It's embarrassing. I mean, my house was a disaster. I didn't want people coming over to see me because I was embarrassed. And, unfortunately, I was stuck. But the first step that helped, I think, was getting the support of a mental health professional. After that, it was a matter of just doing simple things. Sleep was the next thing for me. Sleep really affects everything. So I just had to make sure that I got my sleep. And some people, they can function on 6.5 hours of sleep. I can't. I have to have 8 to 8.5 hours. If I don't get that, I'm worthless. Taking naps was really important. I'm actually at the point where I maybe take a nap once a week for 20 minutes or something after I get off work. But now I don't do that anymore. Usually it's just more come home, maybe sit on the couch for a little bit and just rest my brain, and then getting up, go for a walk and grocery shop. So I usually don't keep my refrigerator that full with stuff. That way I'm forced to go for a walk and walk to the grocery store. And then I'll try to get ingredients to cook a fresh meal. And you get kind of this energy when you do something that's a little bit difficult or hard when you don't feel like it, and then you actually get the results from it. It seems like it's just too much, but then once you do it, you get kind of like a second wind. Another thing is like going to the gym. Tell yourself, I'm going to go once a week and I'm only going to do maybe 30 minutes. That's better than nothing. And then after maybe a few weeks, maybe you can go twice a week for 30 minutes, and then maybe you can increase to 45 minutes each time. So for a long time, I've only been going on Saturday and Sunday because I work Monday to Friday. And so when I work and come home, I just had nothing left. I could only do stuff on the weekends. It's really cool to be able to see the results of this hard work. But like I said, it takes small steps, and you need to surround yourself with positivity. So if you are around people that are negative and toxic and they're maybe not supportive of your goals, then those are probably not the people that you need to be spending time around when you are feeling so down. Same thing at the workplace. You need to try to avoid those toxic people if you can, and just go to work, focus on getting your work done, and only spend time around those people that make you really do better. Finally is mindfulness. So something that I have started doing that's really been helpful now is like just enjoying the quiet and slowing down. So for example, I'm one of those people, I love music and I love podcasts and things of that nature, but you don't need to be having that stuff going on all the time. Sometimes you need to have quiet time just for your brain to digest everything and calm down. So I've been enjoying just driving to work with nothing on the radio, and that really makes a difference. The other thing I meant to say earlier is try to minimize stress. Avoid stress as much as you can. There will always be stress, but anything you can do to minimize it, even small things. For example, try to have all your stuff for work the next day, have it prepared the night before, have your clothes laid out, have your meals packed so all you do is grab it. Try to get up a little earlier so that you are not stressed out when you come to work. Try to just slow down, look at the world around you. Something I enjoy is like waking up in the morning and not having anything turned on, going barefoot in the apartment and feeling the wood grain against my feet, wearing comfortable clothes and feeling the textures, drinking coffee with no noise, going for a walk in the woods, trying to be out in nature as much as you can. These are things that are really important and help your mind detoxify. One other thing I want to caution against is the fact that sometimes when you get to feeling a little bit better, if you're like me, then you end up overdoing it and overcommitting yourself. So try not to make any commitments for a while. Just try to do the basics. And you may get to a point where you're thinking, I'm a little bit bored because you're used to doing so much, or you get overexcited and then you end up overextending yourself. Get used to the boredom. The boredom is actually a good thing. And then with time, as you build up your strength and you tick all those boxes, you're exercising, you're walking, you're eating healthy, your house is clean, everything's in order, and you've got spare time, then maybe you can try to take on some more things, but try to do things one at a time. So if you want to take on some new goals, just do one goal at a time and pace yourself. I came across a video on YouTube, and I'll leave a link here so that you can watch that if you're interested in that. There was a physician who talked about burnout, and they mentioned that one of the problems is people think that they can just go on a vacation. They say, well, I'll feel better if I just go somewhere for a month or 2 months or 3 months, and then I'll be fine. But what happens? Well, even here in Sweden, unlike America, I'm grateful because where I worked in the States, I got, about 6 or 7 weeks of vacation because I'd worked there for so many years per year. But here in Sweden, it's normal to get 4 or 5 weeks vacation. So a lot of people, what they do is they take 4 weeks off in the summertime and go somewhere and then come back. And what ends up happening after 2 weeks, they're already ready to go on vacation again, and they are feeling tired. So the thing that I learned from the video that I'm leaving a link to here was that you need to treat vacation and rest exactly the same as you would going to the gym. So what would you think about a person who says, I'm going to work out every single day, 2 hours a day, I'm only going to eat healthy food, and I'm going to do everything by the book for an entire month. And then I'm going to just come home, sit on the couch, binge on Netflix, potato chips, eat whatever I want, and do that for 3 months. And then I'll work out really hard for like a whole month. I mean, that's ridiculous, right? That is the same thing with rest. So you can't just tell yourself, okay, I'm going to work my butt off for like the next 5-6 months, and not take any breaks, and then I'm going to go on a 4-week vacation and I'm going to feel all better. What you have to do is you treat it just like working out. So you need to take breaks every day. So for me, what that means is I work 8 hours a day, and I get a guaranteed lunch break, and that's 30 minutes. But during the day, because where I work, it's a very fast-paced, intense department, and it's hard to kind of like catch your breath. So what I do is about once an hour, because I usually get a patient every 45 minutes to an hour, I will go in between patients and go to the waiting room and look out. There's a park that's down below, and I will look out the window and rest my brain for maybe 60 seconds. And then that's like a big reset for my brain so that I'm ready to take on the next patient. That has made a huge difference for me. Trying to break up resting throughout the day, every single day, over weeks and months, instead of just saying, I'm just going to have to work really hard and then, you get your vacation in the summertime. It doesn't work. So that's not a sustainable thing. So if you can, figure out ways that you can maybe get up from your desk, go for a walk, go outside the building if you can, get a cup of coffee, get some water, grab your coworker, see if y'all can just have a 2-minute break, 5-minute break, whatever, and do a lap around the department, do some stretching. Very important to take those frequent short breaks, not necessarily longer breaks or long vacations. I hope this video has been helpful to you guys. Make sure to leave in the comments if any of these strategies you've implemented and had benefit from. If you've got some other tips that you would like to share that could be helpful to the community, please don't hesitate to share that with us. Don't forget to like the video if you found it helpful. Make sure to be kind to yourself and kind to others.